Picture a temperature-controlled garage somewhere in a quiet neighborhood. The floors are cleaner than most people's kitchens. The lighting is soft and deliberate. And sitting in the center of it all is a car that has never once been driven in the rain. Its odometer reads fewer miles than most people put on their vehicle in a single month. The tires still carry the faint texture of the factory mold. This car has never sat in traffic. It has never been late to pick someone up. It has never carried groceries or driven through a fast food line. To most people, this would seem like a waste, a car that doesn't go anywhere, a machine that never does what machines are supposed to do. But to the person who owns it, this car is doing exactly what it was purchased to do. It is sitting still. It is holding value. It is growing. People who buy cars as investments rather than transportation occupy a fascinating and often misunderstood corner of human psychology. They are not simply wealthy collectors with too much money and too much space. They are individuals driven by a specific combination of psychological forces that reveal something profound about the human relationship with objects, time, money, and identity. Understanding why someone would spend six figures on a vehicle they never intend to drive requires stepping into a psychological world most people never think to explore. The first thing to understand is that investment car buyers think in a fundamentally different time dimension than most people. The average person sees a car and thinks about today. How comfortable is the ride? How good does it look pulling up to work? How much will insurance cost this month? The investment buyer sees the same car and thinks about 15 years from now. They are mentally standing in the future, looking backward at this moment, calculating what this particular machine will mean to collectors who haven't even developed their passion yet. This long-range psychological orientation is not common. It requires a specific cognitive style that combines patience, pattern recognition, and a deep trust in one's own judgment about what the future will value. There is a man named Richard who spent years working as a mid-level accountant in a mid-sized city. He was not wealthy by most definitions. He drove a practical sedan to work every day and brought lunch from home. But quietly, over the course of a decade, he purchased 4 vehicles that he stored in rented climate-controlled units. A limited-edition Japanese sports car from the early 1990s, a German performance vehicle that was discontinued after a single model year, a domestic muscle car from a transitional production period that enthusiasts had begun discussing in forums, and a relatively obscure Italian vehicle with a complicated history that most people had completely forgotten existed. Richard did not come from money. He came from careful observation, obsessive research, and a psychological relationship with delayed gratification that most people find genuinely difficult to understand. When asked why he stored cars he never drove, he said something that stayed with anyone who heard it. He said that every car he owned represented a conversation he was having with the future. He wasn't buying metal, he was buying time. This idea of buying time connects deeply to a well-documented psychological concept known as temporal discounting. Most humans are wired to prefer rewards that come sooner rather than later. Give someone the choice between $100 today and $150 in a year, and the majority will take the smaller amount now. The investment car buyer operates with a different psychological wiring. They are able to suppress the immediate reward in exchange for a much larger future payoff, and they find genuine satisfaction not in the eventual sale, but in the waiting itself. The garage becomes a place of patient optimism. Every year the car sits untouched is a year closer to the moment the world catches up to what they already saw. Psychologists who study collecting behavior note that there is a consistent profile among people who accumulate objects for future value. They tend to score high in a trait called need for cognition, which describes people who genuinely enjoy thinking, analyzing, and problem-solving for its own sake. They are often individuals who feel somewhat out of step with their immediate social environment. While colleagues are talking about the game last night or planning a vacation, the investment buyer is mentally cross-referencing production numbers against auction results from 3 years ago. They exist in a slightly different intellectual world, and the car collection becomes a place where that world is made physical and real. There's also a powerful identity dimension operating beneath the surface. Owning a vehicle that other people overlook or underestimate carries a particular psychological satisfaction that is hard to articulate but very easy to feel. When someone purchases a car that the general public considers outdated, ugly, or irrelevant, and then watches the world slowly come to recognize what they already knew, it delivers a profound confirmation of self. It says that this person sees things others cannot, that their judgment is sharper, their knowledge deeper, their patience longer. This is not arrogance in the traditional sense. It is the quiet confidence of someone who has developed genuine expertise and watches it prove itself over time. The nostalgia economy plays an enormous role in what makes investment cars valuable, and the most successful buyers understand this intuitively. Human beings tend to develop their deepest emotional attachments to objects between the ages of 12 and 25. This is the period when identity is forming, when experiences feel most vivid, when music and cars and culture brand themselves permanently into memory. As generations age, they develop the financial means to pursue the objects that define their youth. A car that was ordinary and affordable in 1995 becomes extraordinary and expensive in 2025 when the people who grew up dreaming about it finally have the money to buy it back. The investment buyer is essentially predicting nostalgia before it crystallizes. They are purchasing the emotional futures of entire generations. Consider a woman named Alina who grew up in a household where money was always scarce. As a teenager, she watched a specific model of Japanese coupe pass through her neighborhood and felt something she couldn't name at the time. Years later, with a career established and savings accumulated, she recognized that feeling as the seed of a passion that had been quietly growing for decades. She began purchasing examples of that same model in the best condition she could find, not to drive them, not to show them off at every opportunity, but to hold them, preserve them, and understand their history more deeply than almost anyone else alive. What began as personal nostalgia evolved into market awareness. She understood at a cellular level why this car mattered to people like her, because she was one of those people. Her emotional connection was her competitive advantage. The psychology of control also runs powerfully through investment car culture. Unlike the stock market, which operates through mechanisms that most individual investors cannot meaningfully influence or fully understand, a physical car responds to direct human intervention. Its condition can be improved or maintained through personal effort. Its provenance can be documented and enhanced. Its story can be researched and told. The investment buyer is not at the mercy of abstract financial forces in the same way. They can look at their asset, touch it, make decisions about it, and see the direct results of their care reflected in its condition. In a world where financial anxiety is pervasive and most investments feel distant and intangible, this tactile relationship with wealth provides genuine psychological comfort. There is a community of people who share this orientation, and like all communities built around specialized knowledge, it operates with its own language, hierarchy, and rituals. Forums where production numbers are debated with academic intensity, private viewings where cars change hands without ever appearing on any public market. Relationships between collectors that span decades and involve levels of trust rarely found outside of close family. Joining this world provides more than financial opportunity. It provides belonging, status, and intellectual stimulation in a single package. For people who have always felt that mainstream social structures did not quite fit their particular mind, the investment car community can feel like the first place they have ever truly belonged. The financial psychology involved deserves honest examination as well. People who invest in cars are not operating purely on logic, even when they believe they are. Research into collector markets consistently shows that buyers overestimate the future value of objects they are emotionally attached to. The car that someone loves is always, in their mind, slightly more special than the market will eventually confirm. This does not necessarily lead to poor outcomes, because passion drives the deep research and meticulous preservation that actually creates value. But it means that the line between investment and emotional attachment is always blurrier than the buyer acknowledges. The spreadsheet is real, the heart is also real, both are sitting in that climate-controlled garage. What ultimately drives people who buy cars as investments is something that goes beyond money and beyond nostalgia and beyond community. It is a desire to participate in history, to hold a physical artifact that represents a specific moment in human culture and industrial creativity. Cars are not just machines. They are expressions of the era that produced them, carrying within their design and engineering the priorities, aesthetics, and spirit of their time. Preserving them is, in a quiet way, an act of cultural stewardship. The investment buyer may frame their motivation in financial terms, but beneath the spreadsheets and auction results, they are people who believe that these objects matter, that they deserve to be saved, that the future will be grateful someone thought to set them aside before the world moved on and forgot. In the end, the person who buys a car and never drives it is not avoiding life. They are participating in a longer version of it.